The Galactic Empire stretched across 10,000 systems, an ancient web of dominion woven over millennia. Its fleets patrolled every trade lane. Its governors ruled with the certainty of absolute power, and its arrogance had calcified into a law of nature. To those who lived under its banners, the Empire was eternal. Among its countless subjects, humanity was a minor frontier species, useful for trade, tolerated for labor, but neither feared nor respected. Human diplomats spoke politely, human traders sold diligently, and human scientists roamed the edges of mapped space seeking knowledge. They were viewed as clever but harmless, their history of violent wars dismissed as the quaint savagery of primitives still learning to behave in the wider galaxy. Border incidents had been rising. Pirate attacks near Imperial outposts were blamed on human captains without evidence. Small skirmishes flared between merchant convoys and customs patrols. Where humanity issued carefully worded denials, the Empire issued warnings in the language of power. Patrols doubled, tariffs rose, and arrests followed. The machinery of Imperial law ground forward without pause. 10 humans, explorers, traders, scientists, found themselves seized at a remote station orbiting a dull, cold star. Their cargo was seized, their ship impounded, and their protests silenced. The tribunal convened within hours, its verdict decided before the first charge was read. Accusations of espionage, subversion, weapons trafficking, it did not matter what words were used. They were guilty because the Empire required them to be guilty. No defense was permitted. Witnesses were not called. When the judgment was passed, the hall was empty save for uniformed guards, a few recording drones, and an Imperial magistrate who never once looked the prisoners in the eye. Sentence: death by public execution, to be broadcast as a warning to all who defied Imperial will. The method was chosen with deliberate cruelty. To insult the species accused, the Empire revived an ancient human punishment long buried in their own history books. Crucifixion. On the day of execution, the station's plaza was clear of civilians. Only soldiers and cameras remained. The 10 were marched forward, chained and silent. They had been beaten but not broken, denied food but not dignity. One by one they were raised on crude iron beams, arms stretched wide, bodies bound with steel cuffs that cut into flesh. The Empire wanted the image seared into every human eye. 10 figures, nailed to their own past. The broadcast began. Across hundreds of worlds, Imperial citizens watched the spectacle as news feeds carried the live signal. Commentators mocked the condemned as reckless smugglers. Admirals praised the sentence as a necessary show of strength. No Imperial voice spoke of justice, only obedience. In human space, every screen went dark but for the images of suffering. There were no pleas from the prisoners, no cries for mercy, only steady gazes and clenched jaws. One of them, lips cracked and voice barely audible, whispered into the wind, "Tell Earth." Hours passed. No reprieve came. One by one their bodies failed. The cameras lingered. The Empire wanted submission. What it got was silence. No curse, no bargain, no begging. 10 humans died staring down their executioners. The reaction was not immediate rage. There were no riots in the streets of Earth, Luna, or Mars. No panic broadcast demanding vengeance. Instead, there was stillness. News agencies replayed the footage without commentary. Families watched in silence. Soldiers on distant outposts said nothing over the comm in offices buried beneath cities. The United Earth Council met without a single word of debate. The authorization was signed in less than a minute. Across every colony and station, encrypted orders spread like a silent pulse through the veins of humanity. Operation Extinction was approved. Factories shifted production overnight. Civilian ships vanished into dry dock for refitting. Research facilities sealed their doors and began pulling black files from encrypted archives. Weapons programs long shelved as too dangerous, now deemed necessary. Intelligence operatives erased public chatter, pulling every trace of planning from civilian networks. The preparations were not loud. They were not visible to Imperial spies. What the galaxy saw was a human civilization closing itself off. Trade slowing to a crawl, embassies shuttered without explanation. Alien observers misread the silence. Imperial analysts concluded that humans were intimidated. Commentators mocked their cowardice. calling them soft, unfit for the harsh realities of interstellar politics. They mistook discipline for fear. Where they expected chaos, they found unity. Where they expected protest, they found resolve. Humanity did not howl in anger. Humanity sharpened its knives. The crucifixion broadcast was replayed in imperial academies as proof that upstart species could be broken. Admirals warned their cadets that human defiance was nothing more than theatrics, soon to be forgotten. Governors spoke of tightening controls on human trade routes, confident that no retaliation would come. The 10 martyrs were dismissed as criminals who got what they deserved. The Empire congratulated itself for its strength. On Luna, the shipyards ran without pause, assembly lines lit bright against the void. On Mars, mines poured out raw materials, every gram routed to orbital forges. Earth's orbital elevators carried payloads in constant streams. The night skies alive with departing transports whose manifest no foreign observer was allowed to read. Deep in Kuiper Belt facilities, black fleets assembled in silence, hulls plated with radar-absorbing composites, drives tuned to run cold and dark. No speeches announced their purpose. No songs marked their construction. Humanity needed no anthem but memory. Engineers worked without complaint. Miners pulled double shifts without asking why. Scientists reopened sealed vaults holding weapons designed to end worlds. A population spread across dozens of planets, millions of ships, billions of lives, moved as one organism with a single thought. This will not stand. The United Earth Council spoke, once to its own people, and only once. A simple transmission carried to every outpost and colony. 10 of ours were murdered. Their names will be remembered. Their deaths will be answered. No further explanation was given. None was needed. In imperial space, the chatter continued. The humans had gone silent, and silence was interpreted as surrender. Merchants whispered that Earth was frightened. Imperial propagandists declared victory, claiming humanity would come crawling with apologies and tribute. A handful of alien diplomats, those who knew humanity better, began pulling their citizens out of human sectors. They recognized the pattern. Humanity had not forgotten. Humanity never forgot. The crucifixion had not broken human will. It had hardened it. The Empire could not see the change because it never looked beyond its own pride. In the cold corridors of human command centers, strategies unfolded on holographic tables. Fleet deployments shifted subtly. Shipping traffic masked military movements. Civilian ships vanished from trade routes to be reborn as gunships. Covert probes slipped into imperial space, mapping supply lines, fleet yards, planetary defenses. The information flowed upward, forming a lattice of targets. The Empire congratulated itself for a victory that did not exist. In their Senate halls, governors assured one another that humans had learned their lesson. In naval academies, the crucifixion broadcast was studied as an example of how fear could pacify a frontier species. Analysts wrote reports describing humanity as fragile, incapable of sustained resistance, and unworthy of serious consideration. The stillness of human space was misinterpreted as surrender. Trade slowed, embassies went quiet. Convoys disappeared from known lanes, yet no alarm was raised. Imperial intelligence filed every sign of human withdrawal under a single word: fear. In truth, humanity had begun preparing for war with a precision and unity unseen in the history of the stars. The authorization known only as Operation Extinction spread through encrypted channels, transmitted in dead data packets, disguised as background noise, passed from fleet command to planetary governors to industrial councils with no traceable path. Orders did not need to explain themselves. Every human leader knew why they were issued. There was no dissent, no delay, no debate. Humanity had been insulted. An insult required an answer. Every shipyard came alive. Civilian liners were stripped of luxury fittings and reborn as armored carriers. Deep space freighters were gutted to make room for weapons magazines. Orbital platforms that once tracked comets and stellar storms were recalibrated to map Imperial fleet movements. Entire planetary economies shifted to military production without coercion. Citizens volunteered to work endless shifts, accepting shortages without complaint. There were no speeches from presidents or admirals, no banners, no parades. The work was its own declaration of war. Probes left human space under drives tuned to burn dark, gliding silently across the void. They mapped Imperial installations in exquisite detail. Fleet yards spinning above factory worlds, supply depots anchored in asteroid belts, communications hubs on lonely moons. Every route, every patrol schedule, every maintenance cycle was cataloged. Human intelligence operatives infiltrated neutral ports, bribing merchants and dock workers to track Imperial traffic. No one noticed when convoys disappeared along obscure trade routes. Those who might have spoken never returned from the far side of the stars. In hidden bunkers beneath Mars, old projects were reopened. Relativistic kill vehicles once deemed too dangerous to deploy were fitted with guidance systems accurate to the meter. Nanophage swarms, programmed to devour alloys used only in Imperial ship hulls, were mass-produced. Gravity inversion warheads, experimental weapons capable of crushing capital ships like paper, were removed from deep storage. Artificial intelligence battle planners, forbidden by treaty, were awakened and given unrestricted access to every strategic file. The machines calculated faster than any human mind, but the orders they crafted came from humans alone. Operation Extinction was not entrusted to algorithms. Humanity commanded, machines obeyed. The Empire did not see this mobilization. They were blinded by their own pride. They mistook the silence for weakness because they did not understand a species that had survived its own wars of annihilation, that had rebuilt from ashes time and again. Other civilizations fragmented when threatened. Humanity united. Old rivalries on Earth dissolved overnight. Nations that had once glared at each other across contested borders now shared research freely. Colonial governments on Mars, Titan, Europa, Ceres, and the Kuiper Belt aligned their fleets under a single flag without argument. Humanity's strength was not numbers or firepower alone, but the ability to act as one will. The Empire reinforced its borders half-heartedly. Patrol fleets doubled in strength. Checkpoints scanned for contraband. Imperial governors issued decrees about human travel restrictions, confident that bureaucracy could keep them safe. They had no concept of what was coming. Their analysts predicted minor retaliation, a raid on an outpost, a few skirmishes at most, followed by human diplomats suing for peace. Imperial admirals prepared speeches of triumph they would never deliver. Neutral observers grew uneasy. A handful of alien merchants who had dealt with humans for decades recognized a change in tone. They saw no panic, no protests, no open threats. They saw industry humming at full capacity, saw ships vanish into deep space with no declared destination, saw human settlements stockpiling supplies with quiet efficiency. Those who understood withdrew their people from human sectors. They closed embassies, canceled contracts, and left without explanation. When Imperial officials mocked them for cowardice, they replied only that humanity never forgot a debt or a death. Within human space, the silence deepened. Military convoys traveled without broadcasting identification codes. Civilian communications went dark under layers of encryption, so dense even allied species could not decipher them. Sensor traffic was manipulated to show ordinary activity, while entire fleets shifted position in the cold of interstellar night. Outer colonies reported mysterious disappearances of long-range beacons, but no distress calls were sent. The stillness was deliberate. Humanity was not hiding out of fear. It was hiding to strike unseen. Factories poured out warships faster than the Empire believed possible. Human vessels were not larger than Imperial ships, but they were built for versatility. Modular weapon bays allowed rapid reconfiguration. Armor plating was layered with adaptive shielding that confused Imperial targeting systems. Propulsion systems were modified to burn at variable signatures, making identification impossible. Humanity studied Imperial tactics for weaknesses, crafting fleets designed not to match them in strength, but to dismantle them methodically. Command councils formed, not of politicians, but of officers, engineers, and scientists. Every decision was guided by a single doctrine. No warning, no negotiation, no survivors in battle. This war would not be fought for territory or tribute. It would be fought to erase the Empire's ability to ever threaten humanity again. There would be no surrender terms, no peace talks, no treaties. The 10 crucified will be avenged not with compromise, but with extinction. Imperial intelligence officers continued filing reports dismissing human readiness. They analyzed ship counts and economic output using outdated models, unaware that humanity's industrial base extended far beyond their estimates. Colonies hidden on icy moons and deep space habitats have been producing weapons for decades, unnoticed by Imperial censors. Ghost fleets built in secrecy waited only for orders to deploy. In the months after the execution, the Empire noted only minor changes. Fewer human merchants arriving at trade hubs, a slowdown of civilian research expeditions, some colonies going unusually quiet. These were dismissed as signs of economic strain and fear. Imperial officials sent mocking broadcasts demanding reparations and apologies. None were answered. When ambassadors sent to Earth requested audiences, they were met by locked doors and silent halls. Humanity had withdrawn from diplomacy entirely. The signal to begin was transmitted on a tight beam pulse no Imperial sensor could detect. In that instant, humanity ceased being silent. Fleets hidden in deep space ignited drives cold and dark, timing their burns to appear as random cosmic noise. Relativistic kill vehicles accelerated toward predetermined targets, their paths calculated months earlier with machine precision. In Imperial border sectors, patrol squadrons began vanishing without trace. Communications relays failed simultaneously across 3 regions. What looked at first like technical glitches was the opening move of Operation Extinction. The Empire had no time to react. Their analysts had predicted raids or isolated strikes, not the coordinated destruction of every forward base and supply depot along 1,000 light-years of frontier. Human fleets struck without warning, appearing on sensors only moments before weapons fire lit the void. Carriers deployed swarms of autonomous drones that bypassed shields and ripped through propulsion systems. Hunter-killer frigates deployed gravity inversion warheads against Imperial cruisers, folding their hulls inward like crushed metal foil. By the time emergency messages reached Imperial High Command, entire sectors had gone silent. There were no broadcasts from humanity, no ultimatums, no demands, no declaration of war. Only precise, unrelenting annihilation. The Empire had expected a frightened enemy who would lash out in anger, striking a few symbolic targets to prove defiance. What they faced instead was a species executing a calculated sentence. Within days, Imperial logistics collapsed. Fuel depots disappeared into clouds of plasma. Ammunition convoys were intercepted and vaporized before they reached their destinations. Command ships found their navigation systems corrupted by human cyber warfare, turning in helpless circles until human torpedoes ended them. Where Imperial fleets gathered to counterattack, they were met not by equal force but by ambushes that shredded them before they could maneuver. Humanity did not seek open battle. It dismantled the Empire piece by piece, targeting every nerve and artery until its great fleet starved in their own space. The Empire tried to regroup at fortified systems, confident that their planetary shields and orbital batteries would hold. They underestimated human adaptability. In orbit above key worlds, satellites began to fail without explanation. Gravity wells fluctuated as human weapons altered mass fields remotely. When Imperial fleets defending these worlds attempted to fire, their own targeting arrays refused to lock. Seconds later, bombardment rained from unseen vectors, precision strikes punching through shield harmonics humanity had studied in secret. Planetary capitals burned without warning, defense grids shut down mid-battle, and no human ship remained long enough for retaliation. Panic spread among Imperial citizens. The broadcast that once celebrated human weakness now carried reports of missing fleets and burning worlds. Entire provinces went dark, their governors silenced by weapons they never saw coming. Refugees fled coreward, spreading rumors of invisible armadas and unstoppable machines. The Empire's leadership dismissed these stories as exaggerations, even as entire star systems ceased answering calls. By the time they understood the scale of humanity's mobilization, it was far too late to stop it. Imperial admirals attempted counterattacks against human colonies, but found only decoys and empty stations. Where they struck, they hit nothing but false beacons and mine routes. Ships vanished into traps baited with fabricated distress calls, their crews swallowed by drone swarms that stripped hulls to skeletal frames. Human losses were minimal. Every strike was planned months ahead, Every move synchronized by AI battle planners, ensuring that Imperial fleets never fought on terms they could win. The Empire begged for information, sending envoys to Earth and Mars. No one answered. Neutral species offered to mediate, but their diplomats reported that human governments would not speak. There was nothing to negotiate. Humanity had made its decision when the 10 were crucified. The Empire would fall not in decades of war, but in weeks of systematic destruction. World after world was abandoned as Imperial fleets withdrew to defend the core. Humanity followed relentlessly, leapfrogging across conquered space, not to occupy but to erase the infrastructure of Imperial power. Star bases were vaporized, shipyards gutted, communications webs dismantled beyond repair. Human fleets never lingered to garrison or rule. They struck, killed, and moved on, leaving behind only ruins and silence. Imperial commanders could not predict where humanity would hit next because humanity did not seek strategic objectives like territory or resources. Its only objective was vengeance. As Imperial forces retreated to their capital region, they deployed every remaining ship to form a wall of steel around their homeworld. Thousands of vessels, the largest fleet in Imperial history, waited to repel the human assault. Humanity did not meet them head-on. Instead, waves of relativistic kill vehicles bypassed the fleet entirely, smashing into industrial moons and energy relays that powered the defensive grid. Supply lines collapsed. Communications failed. Human cyber warfare blinded the Imperial Armada to its own surroundings. By the time human warships emerged from the darkness, the great Imperial fleet was already adrift, unable to coordinate or even fire in unison. The battle for the Imperial capital was over before it began. Human vessels swept through in silence, their weapons disabling what few ships still tried to resist. Orbital defense platforms were cracked apart with precision strikes, their crews spaced before they could surrender. In the palace cities below, alarms blared as the shield protecting the Imperial core flickered and died. Humanity did not bomb indiscriminately. It targeted leadership centers, ship command nodes, and weapons caches with surgical accuracy. The Empire's rulers, who had ordered the crucifixion to humiliate a minor species, were annihilated in minutes. No messages of surrender were accepted. No conditions were discussed. The last transmissions from the Imperial homeworld were desperate pleas asking what humanity wanted. They received no reply. Humanity's silence was louder than any threat. It was not a war cry but a verdict. In less than 2 months, the Empire ceased to exist as a functioning power. Its fleets were gone, its command hierarchy shattered, its core worlds burning under the weight of human precision strikes. Humanity did not occupy these planets, did not enslave their people, did not claim their territory. After every strike, human fleets departed, leaving systems in chaos but alive. The point was not conquest. The point was to ensure no one in the galaxy would ever forget what happens when humanity is provoked. As the war ended, human fleets returned to their colonies without celebration. There were no victory parades, no cheering crowds. The work was complete, and the names of the 10 martyrs were spoken again in quiet halls, etched into the memory of every settlement, every ship, every outpost. Humanity did not rejoice in destruction. It simply recorded the cost of peace.